Hello and welcome to Chapter 14. This chapter talks about organization development and change. And change is important in organizations. If organizations don't change, they won't survive. And as HRD professionals, we need to make sure that this change happens in a way that allows the organization to meet its goals and objectives. So OD is defined as a process used to enhance both the effectiveness of an organization and the well-being of its members through planned interventions. So what this means is that it enhances effectiveness. That is, it allows an organization to achieve its goals and objectives, at the same time enhancing the well-being and job satisfaction of members of the organization. It does this through planned interventions. A planned intervention is a set of structured activities in which the selected organizational units, going through the change, engage with a task or sequence of tasks where the task goals are related directly or indirectly to organizational improvement. So two main theories to do with OD. The first is change process theory. And this talks about different stages that change goes through. The first being unfreezing. In unfreezing, we want to get people to understand that change is inevitable, and we want to get them to stop resisting change. In moving or adoption, we want to get people to accept the new ideas or the new state, or the policies, the procedures, the equipment, whatever it is. And then in refreezing, this is where the new practices and behaviors become a permanent part of the organization and the role expectations. The second major theory is implementation theory, and this focuses on specific intervention strategies that are designed to induce changes. And we're going to talk a lot about these things a little bit later in the chapter, but human process-based interventions involve an emphasis on individual attitudes, values, problem-solving approaches, interpersonal style, and that sort of thing. Technostructural focuses on the work itself, improving the work content, the flow of the work, performance, relationship among workers, with the key concept being job design. Socio-technical systems designs and interventions are directed at sort of a combination of these two things, really, and looks at more empowering people to accept more responsibility. And we'll talk about what this includes in a little bit later. This is a model of planned change, and don't worry too much about memorizing all this and understanding all of it. Just kind of look at it as just a guide for how change occurs. Okay, and we have two different types of intervention. We have organization transformation and organization development. So organization transformation is concerned with vision and mission. Organization development is concerned with the work and the social factors, the technology, the physical setting. These things then affect individual organization members and their behavior, and we're trying to get behavior to change. And when behavior changes, we have outcomes of improved performance and enhanced individual development. So in designing an intervention strategy, we're going to look at the specific roles in the process and the steps in designing an intervention strategy, and then the role of the HRD professional in this whole process. So some specific roles within OD and intervention change strategy. The first role is the change manager. This is the person who oversees the design of the intervention strategy. They have overall responsibility for assessing the need for change and determining the appropriate intervention activity, implementing the strategy, and evaluating the result. The change agent assists the change manager in designing and implementing the strategy. and is responsible for facilitating activities surrounding the design and implementation of the strategy. The role of the individual really depends on what the change strategy is, and that's determined by the change manager. We also have EHRD professionals involved, and they can serve as change agents, or they could also serve as evaluators of the intervention strategies. And then we also have to consider labor unions if they're involved, because where change is needed, it's a good idea to meet with unions and even negotiate a cooperative contract where both sides understand what's happening. So the steps for designing an intervention strategy: first, you have to diagnose the environment. Is change needed? If change is needed, then develop an action plan specifying the intervention strategy. And lastly, evaluate the results of the intervention. Was it successful? Did it do what you wanted it to do? So types of interventions. The first type is the human process-based. Remember, this is the type that looks at group relations and intergroup relations and interpersonal things. And two major types of interventions. One is survey feedback, and this is where we would systematically survey groups in the workforce to figure out what are the problem areas and generate potential solutions, and then stimulate some kind of motivation for change. So it gives us a snapshot of an existing situation. And then team building is a very popular intervention. And team building is a process where we want to improve a group's problem-solving ability and effectiveness. When groups become dysfunctional, they're not very helpful, to organizations. So we want to do various interventions to make sure that groups do become functional and effective. The techno-structural interventions have to do with improving the work content, the work method, relationships among workers, and hopefully to lower costs by replacing inefficient materials, methods, equipments, improving workflow design, things like that. And ways we can do that: one is through job enlargement. And this is where oftentimes this is done where someone becomes bored with their job, so the work functions are increased horizontally to give the person a greater variety as well as a sense of the whole task. Job enrichment involves a motivation strategy, and we may have talked a little bit about this when we talked about motivation. So this is building motivation into a job so that employees experience job satisfaction, and the organization has better job performance. Okay, alternate work schedules. These are things like a compressed work week, where someone could work 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8-hour days, or flex time, where employees can come in later and stay later, or come in earlier and leave earlier. And this helps them manage their personal lives, and it's very motivating. The socio-technical systems interventions, these are the ones that kind of combine the first two. And some examples are quality circles. These are groups of employees from 6 to 8 members that get together to solve some sort of a quality issue. So they come together, they solve an issue, come up with suggestions, give the suggestions to management, and then management decides, whether they would like to do this. Total quality management is more of a complete culture or mindset of continuous improvement. So this involves a lot of change in an organization. There has to be a huge commitment from senior management. They have to support this. There has to be quality standards and measures. Lots of training for employees and things like problem solving and interpersonal skills and teams and skills as far as technical skills, like in statistical process control, things like that, communication skills. There has to be some sort of reward, recognition, and celebration system to keep this going. Self-managed teams is an intervention where a company would use formal groups, and these groups are interdependent, and they have the authority to regulate themselves as far as work assignments and schedules and training and dealing with customers and suppliers and deciding how to fix the problems. Okay, so that was organization development. The next topic is organization transformation. And this is a system of shared values, beliefs, and norms that are used to interpret elements in the environment and guide behavior. And some examples of this intervention: cultural changes. And this involves, it's very complex, involves replacing the existing culture with a totally different way of thinking. For instance, total quality management would require a cultural change, or going to self-directed, self-managed work teams would require a huge cultural change. Then we have strategic changes. These are system-wide changes. Organizational learning, where an emphasis is on learning, and a learning organization where everyone is engaged in identifying and solving problems and enabling the organization to continuously be experimenting, improving, and increasing its capability, through collaboration and sharing of how things worked and that sort of thing. A high-performance work system is a multifaceted thing where it involves different combinations of the intervention strategies we've talked about. So it includes using many things at once. So it's a whole system of things to use, like self-managed teams, quality circles, flatter structures, new flexible technology, innovative compensation schemes, training, continuous improvement. So all that together forms a high-performance work system. So the role of HRD in all this, sometimes they serve on the Strategic Change Committee. They can give advice on training and development. They can help the strategic planners look at alternatives and the impact on people. An important part of what they do is address the impact of all this happening, because sometimes this causes changes in jobs or how people perceive things. Some people could even lose their jobs if it's a case of merger, acquisition, or downsizing. So HRD professionals get involved, with dealing with those sorts of situations, dealing with people. So the chapter kind of wraps up by talking about 8 factors for successful organizational change, and I thought these were pretty important. First, you have to ensure the need. You don't just change for change's sake. There has to be a need. It has to make sense. You have to provide a plan. You have to build internal support and overcome resistance. You have to ensure top management support and commitment. To build external support if needed. To provide resources. And the book, I thought, was very good in pointing out that sometimes this costs a lot of money to do. But you have to, it's a long-term strategy. It's not something that fixes a problem overnight. It's a very long-term look at it, a long-term strategy. You have to institutionalize change, and that's where refreezing comes in, and then pursue comprehensive change. It has to be comprehensive and ongoing. So those were the high points of Chapter 14. And don't worry about all the little details in here, because as an HRD major, you're going to take a whole course in OD. So this is just meant to give you an overview of what it is and some of the interventions within OD. Thank you.